there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is Content Farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
The Macedonian Football Team takes its bow at Euro 2020 as they play their third and final game in the month-long contest against the Netherlands on Monday, June 21. But in 3 games against Austria, Ukraine, and the Netherlands, the boys made Macedonia and Macedonians around the world very proud, putting their hearts and soul into playing. And, judging by the scenes flashed across screens from the stadiums, from the cities across Macedonia, and from cities around the world, it was Macedonia and the Macedonian Football Team that was projected into homes, restaurants and cafes, giant TV screens in city squares, phones, tablets, and computers. Some fans, too, got their share of fame and showed the world who Macedonia is. And team captain Goran Pandev finished his international football career with his head held high and with grace, and was honored by his team, by the Dutch team, and by millions around the world. But don't get too comfortable and happy with this news. We're the Macedonian content farmers, and we also report the facts, like the fact that there is now a very public and very deliberate push by Macedonian government officials and many in the international community, but especially in NATO, the EU and its governments, and the State Department, to never use the adjective Macedonian or the 3-letter abbreviation MKD. We'll discuss all of this and much more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oro Valley, Arizona.
And this is Cvetin and Jason calling in from a very, very hot Skopje, Macedonia.
Well, yeah, we can talk about heat. We just got through our big heat wave here, and for the first time in 91 days, that's 3 months, that's a quarter of a year, it rained here yesterday. 3 months without rain. Let that sink in.
Oh my God. And look at me complaining.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, it's summer. You'll get used to it. It's literally summer. It's been summer here for about a month and a half already, but we
had a very cool summer so far. It just hit us in the past few days.
Okay. Well, it comes. I mean, that's why there's seasons, and we have the fall to look forward to, even though the summer just started. So.
We have seasons, you not so much.
That's true. Yeah. Well, so it did rain yesterday. It's the first rain of the monsoon season. We get half our rain during the monsoon, so that's all good news. So anyway, so let's start with the news about the Macedonian football team. So they made it to Euro 2020, played 3 games, Austria, Ukraine, the Netherlands. They lost all 3, but they put their heart and soul into it. They played well, and they made Macedonia proud. I mean, I didn't get to watch any of it, actually, for various reasons, having to do with time difference. I have while they were playing, I was actually having to work, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But you watched it, and you saw the screens, on TV screens, the fans, the football players. I mean, it was just everywhere. It was Macedonia, Macedonia, Macedonia. What was the atmosphere like there in Macedonia as people watched the games?
Oh, it was great. We were losing, but nobody was complaining. Everybody was happy that we were there, and also that we actually did play well. I mean, we were pushing at the opponents real hard. We had maybe 2 or 3 goals disallowed, even one against the Netherlands, which is a big deal. We scored first against the Netherlands, but it was a minuscule offside or something, and then we hit the post before they scored against us, which is a really big deal. I mean, we didn't just roll over and die and just say we're happy to be here. We actually gave them a very good run for their money to all of the teams, and even the Dutch. We had them really in their corner, backed in their corner for good portions of the game. Against Ukraine, we had a much better second half, so we were completely dominating them for half of the game. So pretty good. And the fans were excellent. They were singing, dancing. Some got memed immediately, and
yes.
deservedly.
There was one guy I kept seeing on the Twitters. He had a drum, and he kept hitting, even though the drum actually broke, the skin broke, and so he was just pounding anyway. And then I saw somewhere a day or two later, somebody got him a new drum.
Yeah. He was great, and he became an instant meme. And then also people were saying, okay, this is a metaphor for something. Whether it's the EU accession or whatever.
I hadn't thought. Okay, there's something there. I got to think about that one.
And the only bad thing was that we didn't get to score against the Netherlands. We had one disallowed, one super strong strike early in the game. It hit the post. So it was supposed to be it was the last game for Pandev and also for the coach, Mrma, Igor Angelovsky. And, everybody wanted to have, okay, we said, you're going to beat us, okay, fine, but, let's have Pandev score. And it's not like a charity score. We were actually, in there, and we were very, scored once and had it disallowed. So, that's the only small issue that he didn't, or anybody, we didn't score in the last game. We are 23rd of the 24 teams, so Turkey also lost all three, but only scored once. We scored twice.
So you're saying we're not last?
We're first. We're second from behind. But for Turkey, it's a disappointing result. For us, it's great. I mean, for us, it's really a good game. And then our spare homeland, Hungary, was also excellent. So they held France to a draw. And then they dominated yesterday Germany in a game which the Germans themselves declared the clash of a gay republic. We call it now the Gaymar Republic or Bundesrepublik of Vogtland, because they started they're blaming Hungary now for a law which would allow parents to stop their children from being exposed to gay propaganda at schools under the guise of sex education or something. So they were going to paint the stadium in the rainbow color, and they had some guy run on the pitch with a gay flag against the Hungarians while they were singing their national anthem. So in response, Hungary actually dominated Germany, had 1-0 and 2-1 results, and then eventually it was a bloody draw in the end, 2-2. So we were having both a very good Macedonian showing and also a very good political showing for our spare homeland. So it was good.
I couldn't watch the game yesterday, Hungary and Germany, but I was following updates by the moment, and I thought for sure that a lot of people thought for sure that Hungary was going to win. That's very funny about the whole LBGT rainbow stuff. Ursula von der Leyen, who's the president of the European Union or Commission or whatever. There's so many presidents in the EU. No wonder it's dysfunctional. And she's a mother of 7. She has 7 children, and she's, I believe, is she CDU? Is she Christian Democrat?
Yeah, she was seen as very conservative. She actually had to flee for her life in England when she was a young girl.
Yeah.
Because her father was a conservative politician, and there was a hit on her. There was a mark. She was marked for death by the communist guerrilla movements in Germany. So she was in hiding in the 70s.
Yeah, and so I guess, and now she's no longer a Christian nor a small d Democrat. So this just goes to show when people reach those heights, they pretty much jettison all their beliefs and their values and their virtues, and they just do whatever it takes to continue with their power, etc. So anyway, we're going
become all positive and with high hopes.
Okay, yes.
And then very quickly they turned them.
Yes, well, speaking of positive and high hopes, we started with congratulations here to Macedonia, the Macedonian football team, Zoran Zaev, the coach, and others. So let's bring it back down. Let's, as John Padorit says in the commentary podcast, let's add in some crushing morosity. So I referenced there in the monologue the issue of the 3-letter abbreviation MKD and the adjective Macedonian, and how we've said this throughout the time that we've been doing this podcast, and we've written about it, and we've talked. This is the goal, not necessarily written, but it's becoming obvious to all, I think, all with eyes to see and ears to hear, that the goal of the so-called Prespa agreement, which was signed 3 years ago, just last week, is to eliminate the Macedonian identity. I mean, I think that's just plain. And of course, the thing I want to talk about here first is how the Macedonian football team, and I think we talked about this in the last podcast, the badge on the jerseys of the players was FFM in the Cyrillic alphabet. So, most people wouldn't even know what that means. It's Football Federation of Macedonia. The Greeks complained about that, saying that it should be the North Macedonia Football Federation Team, or Football Federation Team of North Macedonia, or as they and others would call it, the North Macedonian Football Team, or something like that. Anyway, they complained about it, became a minor issue, and then Zoran Zaev, the putative prime minister of the Republic of Macedonia, put out what was a tweet saying that he was proud of the Macedonian, using that adjective, the Macedonian football team, and then the Greeks got their panties and knickers in a knot, and went ballistic and complained again, and said that he can't refer to it as that, and he certainly can. Even a normal reading of the so-called Prespa Agreement says that the adjective Macedonian and its various forms is allowable, and the MKD is abbreviation of the three-letter code is supposed to be used per whatever, I can't remember what the international organization that sets up these standards is called. Anyway, and then of course Zoran Zaev does what Zoran Zaev does, and he apologizes, showing that the man lacks any dignity or honor or worth as a man. Zero, zilch, nada, nothing, zip.
Even for him, this was bad.
It was pretty low. I mean, I almost expected him to like the scene from Deliverance, to get on his knees and squeal like a piggy. It's
really bad, very bad.
Yeah, and to those listeners who know what that reference is, I do apologize for putting that image in your mind. Oh, by the way, Ned Beatty, who was the man who got down on his knees and squealed like a piggy in the movie, just died 2 weeks ago. So.
Oh God.
Yeah. So anyway.
Condolences.
Yes. So this goes back again to So the Greeks now, the Greek government, I should say, is threatening to put a hold on three memoranda that was going to sign with the Macedonian government. Is that correct?
That's nothing really. There are memorandums which are mentioned in the Prespa Treaty, which we're supposed to work on, like mundane stuff, nothing interesting.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been approved in the Greek parliament for years because, the government of Greece now, they were opposed to the Prespa Treaty, the conservatives, the New Democracy, Mitsotakis, and especially his sister Dora Bakoyanni.
Oh, right.
Speaking of European female politicians pursued by the communists.
Yeah.
And then now in power, they are, moving between like tolerating it and actually actively implementing parts of it. But in this case, they never got around to voting on on ratifying these memorandums because the left says, okay, but we get a roll call. Like they have the right to demand an individual vote by every member of parliament, so they're on the record by name and that they vote in favor of this. And then the left is going to harass them to no end, saying, okay, you Christopoulos, you said you're against Prespa, but now you're voting for a portion of Prespa. You Angelopoulos, you said you're against Prespa, but you now support Prespa. You voted in favor. So the New Democracy has been delaying this for years, and this is just the latest excuse for them to. So the memorandums are not important. What is important is, as you said on Twitter, I think we are now having. There was like a gentleman agreement that when France is blocking Macedonia, Greece and Bulgaria back off. So then when Bulgaria is blocking Macedonia, Greece and France and the Netherlands back off. Now this is a new moment when they're joining forces and they're tag teaming on Zoki. And that's the fun new moment. They're losing patience with him over, I think he has done a number of times. So Zaev would say Makedonsky for a whole bunch of things. Mm-hmm. So under his explanation, we can say Makedonsky, Macedonian, for Macedonian ballet, Macedonian sports, Macedonian I don't know, philosophy, Macedonian art or something. But so in a sense, but not for like the Macedonian Ministry of Interior. He's supposed to say he's not supposed to say North Macedonian. You're not supposed to say Macedonian. You're supposed to say the Interior Ministry of the Republic of North Macedonia. So for a full-on institution, you're supposed to use this. But Zaev kept insisting that he preserved the term Macedonian for a whole host of other things, and he frequently uses it, and including for the football team. And a bunch of other of his minions would also use it. But now the Greeks, when they responded angrily to this tweet, this humiliating apology, he said, well, listen, I'm 46 years old, people make mistakes, I'm old, I'm 46, Jesus. And looked very bad, especially as he was persuading everybody that we have the right to the adjective, except that we need to be careful where we use it. So he flies to the Netherlands. His is the first face we see when we score a goal and then it's disallowed. He kept making these bizarre faces with the Dutch Prime Minister, like, hey, well, what can you do? It's life, we missed. Almost seemed like congratulating the Dutch guys. When they scored a goal, there was like a review of the whole thing on camera, because I think there was a foul against Panda for somebody, and then they kept playing. So there was a chance they canceled their goal as well after they canceled ours. And Zaev is already congratulating him, and everybody on Twitter was screaming like, remove this person from our TV screens. We don't want to see him, like, stop this, his bad luck. And he's there to tell the team to change the name of the Football Federation, which he's trying to remove the president of for financial reasons, not for the name. He prevented a proper welcoming ceremony, so the team just flew into Skopje and that was it. There were like few people at the handpicked by Zaev, like his head of the sports administration or something, and no welcoming ceremony in downtown Skopje, and maybe some cafe. Maybe it wasn't like worthy of driving through the Macedonia gate in triumph, but it was pretty close, and they could have definitely had some kind of gathering in the evening when it's colder, when the guys flew into Skopje. Nothing like that. And then he says he apologizes for Macedonia and wants to rename the team. So really, any instance of patriotic fervor, which you can't avoid at a world championship, it doesn't go hand in hand with this groveling posturing of Zaev and implementation of the press patriotism. Just compare it to the Hungarians. It was black and white. It's uncomparable.
Yeah, good. That's a good explanation there. And I just put out a column, 10 points on Prespa 3 years later, in which I argue that the whole bloody thing should be terminated. So the State Department can go ahead and blacklist me. So I guess I can't travel to the United States. Which is going to be an interesting...
You can leave, but maybe
maybe I can't come back. Right, but in it, I argue various points, and one of them, of course, is this that we're talking about, and that is that it is I think the goal of especially the international community, the European Union and their governments, NATO, the State Department, to eliminate any talk of Macedonians as a people, as an ethnicity, as an identity. And everything else that goes with that. I mean, I defy you. I defy anybody listening to this podcast. Go to NATO.int, international, the official NATO website. Try and find an example of Jens Stoltenberg or anybody, any NATO official, saying Macedonian, the adjective, talking about the Macedonians. The only time you will find Macedonian on the NATO website, as far as I can see, is when it is referring to the translation, which is provided by Macedonians, when it is perhaps a journalist question, but you will not find Jens Stoltenberg or anybody else talking about the Macedonians. Now, you will find examples, as I posted with my column, 10 Points on Prespa 3 years later, an official NATO Twitter handle. This is NATO in Bosnia and Herzegovina, of all places, from end of March. And it says, what benefits have North Macedonians experienced since joining NATO? Well, I suppose you could say the benefit of being called North Macedonians.
Yeah.
So you find examples of that, and I mean, my goodness, just today, as you know, I keep a running list of examples in the media, mostly the media. EU Observer today by Andrew Retman, I believe you know that name. He closes out his article, and the last sentence is, but speaking about the process as it looks today, it was, quote, hopelessly stuck, unquote, the North Macedonian diplomat said. I mean, this is going on all the time. And then, of course, we've got, so yesterday, Fatmir Bassimi, who's the Minister of Finance or Economy? Or can you remember? He tweets out something about...
They're both Albanians and half the government are Albanians, so it takes me a while to process.
So he tweets out something yesterday about, what was the Skopje, there was something, Skopje forum of some sort yesterday.
Yeah, there was some economic thing.
Yeah, and he tweets out using RNM, which of course is, I guess, Republic of North Macedonia, which is not correct in any way, shape, or form. So, again, this just goes, and you rarely, I mean, Kate Burns, the U.S. ambassador, I'll give her a little bit of credit. I think I've seen twice in the many tweets that she's put out, and I'm just talking about her Twitter handle, where she's actually used Macedonian, the adjective, in a year and a half or 2 years, however long she's been there. But you rarely see it, and it is a deliberate attempt by the internationals, but especially by NATO, the State Department, the European Union, and its various governments, to not just avoid using the adjective, but I think, and by avoiding it, they are essentially starving it of any oxygen or usage or giving it any credibility whatsoever by avoiding it and going to these complicated linguistic gymnastics of another tweet by another, I think it was a NATO handle, a NATO organization that talked about U.S. troops working at Krivlak together with the North Macedonia engineers when they could have said Macedonian engineers. So
it's precisely in these institutions which are definitely linked with national pride, the army, the football team. It hurts especially badly. Like I've mentioned, I think the monument to the Macedonian soldiers who died. There was like a dozen soldiers who died in a helicopter crash returning from Bosnia, and their monument in I think it's in Sarajevo, in the NATO base. It doesn't have the name of the country. So it's like it says soldiers. It doesn't say whose soldiers were killed. It's, it's really.
I didn't realize
ugly.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and then talking about pride and dignity and which identity is a huge part of that for a people. Now you got Ali Ahmeti, and we didn't discuss this prior to getting online here, but Ali Ahmeti is running around telling people that he's talking to Zaev about changing the Macedonia's flag, anthem, national symbols, etc. Of course, Zoran Zaev denies it. Everything Zoran Zaev says, you can count on the opposite being true, apparently.
He didn't really deny it that strenuously. He said, not with me, maybe with somebody else in my party. Maybe Ahmeti is talking to somebody else in my party.
Yeah, sure.
He seriously said that.
Okay, so
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, too clever by halves, Oki. But yeah, so this year, 2021, is the 30th anniversary of Macedonia. It's an independent nation state in the modern sense of the word, but a very old country, very old people. And if the flag were to change again, it'd be 3 flags in 30 years. What's that, an average of 10 years? Yeah. You change flags as often as some people change underwear. So it's just ridiculous. It's and I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It shouldn't. Macedonians need to rise up and tell Al Ahmeti where he can stick it, where he can go. I've certainly done my share of telling him that. I do think it is ironic, and I tweeted this at Kate Burns the other day. Macy Gray, I don't actually follow her music. I don't know if she's hip-hop or blues or... I literally have no idea because I'm an 80s guy. But she caused a big brouhaha here the other day with our new federal holiday, Juneteenth, which I support. I think it's fine. I mean, absolutely, to recognize the emancipation of slaves. Slavery was an incredible evil. And it took the lives of hundreds of thousands of people to get rid of it. But she tweeted out that, not tweeted, she had an op-ed in a newspaper that she thinks that the American flag, the current stars and stripes that we have, is divisive and hateful, and it should be changed. And so I tweeted that out at Kate and said, as an American, what do you think? Should we change our flag? Because Al Ahmeti's arguing again, and I didn't get any response. I don't expect our civil servants here in the United States to respond to questions from the people that pay their bloody salaries. But and I have no idea what she thinks. I don't know if she thinks our flag is divisive or not. Maybe she does.
And the song about the flag was written by a slave owner. So in one strike, you have to replace both the flag and the anthem.
Ah, yes, but the tune is to an old English drinking song, to Anacreon in Heaven. That's the actual tune to the Star Spangled Banner, which is a fascinating bit of history and fun to go back and there are groups that sing the original song with the original lyrics to Anacreon in Heaven, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, that's nice. Anyway,
well, I came out in favor of I'm with Ahmeti. We need to replace these things because there are compromises already. Like the flag is compromised on the original flag, and during the football games, people use both of them, like in equal measure or maybe like 2-to-1 ratio. The current flag, which is sometimes derisively called the ventilator flag, and the Kutlash flag. Its author is a lunatic, Miroslav Grčev, who hates Macedonians, Macedonian national identity, any expression of Macedonian patriotism with tremendous... so if you're judging the symbol, like in the US, by the author, like in the case of the anthem, the flag is absolutely should go. The coat of arms is a joke. We had a situation in 2015, 2016, with, around the colored revolution, when Gruevski actually got Ahmeti to agree to constitutional amendments to have the lion, the historic symbol, the medieval times symbol of Macedonia, which you can trace back to Alexander, who used the lion as his symbol, tracing it back to Hercules. And Ahmeti agreed, so we had the majority, but then the colored revolution messed this up. And even the anthem, the original anthem of the Asnom uprising is a song written for Macedonia ordered ostensibly by Todor Alexandrov, but then adapted by Kočaracin, so it unites both the left and the right of Macedonia. Izgre Zorana Slobodata, and that was removed in favor of the current anthem. So I said, okay, let's have, like, there are 3 groups in Macedonia. Let us, on the Vimera side, have the Kutlash star, Izgre Zora as an anthem, or we can choose something else, but properly patriotic song. And let's have the coat of arms, the lion. Albanians can use their symbols. They do it anyway. An issue was made by Ahmeti of the fact that the Albanian players in the team did not, it was visible, they didn't sing, they didn't mouth the anthem while it was playing. And the lefty, the communists, they can use whatever, the Yugoslav flag, the Hey Slovenia Yugoslav anthem, the current symbols, whatever they like. I mean, the coat of arms, definitely it's the communist coat of arms. So, yeah, I mean, it is an issue which we need to discuss. But you know that with Zaev it's going to be even more whitewashed and pointless and inclusive and meaningless symbolism if Zaev does it.
You said whitewashed. Is that a racial reference?
No, watered down. Yeah, I think I was going for watered down.
You're right. I mean, anything Zion. That's a strange name. Anything Zaev touches wilts and dies. And so the sooner Zoran Zaev and Ali Ahmeti are gone, the better for Macedonia.
Yeah.
For all of the better for all of Macedonia's citizens, the better for the region, etc. Well, speaking of Zoran Zaev and Ali Ahmeti departing the scene, and we've had 2 elections. They got in there by the skin of their teeth, so to speak. New poll out by the International Republican Institute, which has been polling in Macedonia for decades, I think. I remember Dave Williams, I think he's retired now, but he used to be the pollster that worked with a local polling firm. But the latest poll that comes out, I mean, if you look at these numbers, they do not bode well for Zoran Zaev and his government. Just to look at a couple of numbers here, 81% of the respondents say that the economy will either stay the same or get worse in the next 2 years. Now that number, stay the same or get worse, just 3 years ago in 2018 was 60%. Actually in 2017 it was 71%, then it went down to 60%, now it's up to 81%. The same or get worse. The same is, I guess, okay, but you want to have growth in an economy. You want an economy where people are becoming wealthier and able to save, and not one where it just stays the same, but stay the same or get worse in the next 2 years. Is Macedonia more or less stable than it was 1 year ago today? 39%, 40%. So 4 out of 10 people say less stable than a year ago. 3 years ago, that number was only 25%. In the next 2 years, the economy will get better, worse, or stay the same. 44%, that's approaching half, say it'll get worse. 92% say their quality of life is the same as it was a year ago or getting worse. Well, that means only 8% say it's getting better, so that's not a very good number. And I guess those 8% all work for the government. Should your mayor be re-elected? 53% say no.
Yep.
Now let me just go through some other numbers here, but then I want to come back to that because we have local elections coming up in October. How strongly do you agree or disagree that the rule of law exists in Macedonia? 54% strongly or somewhat disagree that the rule of law actually exists. So more than half say it doesn't exist. 80% basically do not believe that young people in Macedonia have a good future. No surprise there. 63% strongly or somewhat disagree with the statement, quote, the current government is open and accountable to the citizens and the public. They strongly or somewhat disagree, meaning that it isn't. And 66% say that government officials largely do not adhere to the rule of law or do not adhere to the rule of law at all. So, interesting. No real surprise, I think, in this. It's just comparing the numbers with previous numbers. It's a very long poll. If anyone wants to look it up, they can email us and we'll send them a copy. But 53% say their mayor should not be reelected. And I think, did you do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the
It was a little weird. So these are very bad numbers for Zaev, especially in the economics, which matters. He's now hiking the price of oil, of gas, because the budget is empty, so he's taxing it more. So it's getting worse, and inflation, there are signs of inflation. And consider this was supposed to be the rebound year after the collapse of last year. So we're not having a rebound. There was a noticeable decline in the first quarter of the year, in a year when Zaev was hoping for a 40% growth. So it's going badly for him. On the other hand, we're up for municipal elections. And when you look at the end of the poll, there was like by municipality. So 53% say they want to remove the mayor, which is horrible for Zaev because the last elections were just after he grabbed power and he actually captured almost all mayoral positions in Macedonia. So if half of the people want their mayor out, this means he has everything to lose. He can lose by a lot. But then if you look in Kumanovo, like this mayor in particular, well, it's a 4-1 that they want to keep him, which makes no sense. So it happens in the US sometimes, like when you ask the people what they think of Congress, it's like 10% rating. But then when they ask them about their incumbent, the incumbent always wins. So it is possible that we will have this. So if it's general elections, then Zaev would be in big trouble. Municipal elections, maybe not as much, but also the disparity in the numbers, like in Štip 2-1, in Kumanovo 4-1 in favor of SDSM, even after in Kumanovo they've completely split the party and SDSM are completely split. So the numbers also did not make much sense to me, on top of everything else. Then there is another poll today. It wasn't a poll, it was not sure exactly where it came from. It's a weird year with the corona. So we had a number that people were asked, do you have a household member who has emigrated in the past year or something, moved to a foreign country? I suppose they meant extended household. And it was like 17-20% in the past, and now it's down to 7%. And Zaev's idiot deputy, even more idiot than himself, Deputy Prime Minister Ljupčo Nikolovsky comes out and says, this is everything we've ever worked for. This is finally all our hard work has come to fruition. Look at these great numbers. Nobody could leave
Nobody
the
could
country.
travel, exactly.
This is for 2020, you idiot. Everything was closed. The fact that 7% of the people actually managed to leave the country, it's huge.
So he's not. So
deal.
Nikolovsky is not that bright, is what you're saying. So
Jesus.
yeah. Oh, that's
No, they know what it says,
Yeah.
but they're like duplicitous and
Yes.
manipulative idiots.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what polls matter? I mean, it's not like we have proper elections in a proper democracy where polling means much. The ambassador says, okay, this party goes on a blacklist and Toto, and don't vote for them. By extension, she says. Or if you vote for them, make sure they are warned that they need to go back on everything they're saying now. So half of the previous government is in prison. So it's not like it's a democratic country where polling matters. This is completely different type of a country now.
Yeah, well, and this is also from that poll, and this goes back to the article that I wrote. We talk about on this podcast the concept from John Locke, the consent of the governed, which is a basis for modern day democracies and the idea of self-rule. And self-rule, though, implies that the government has the consent, the people agree with it to let them govern. And in that poll, 17% of respondents said that there are better forms of government than democracy. Now, what else is out there? I mean, you've got autocracy, you've got dictatorship, you've got communism, you've got, as Jonah Goldberg calls North Korea, the divine right of Kims. Not kings, but Kims, etc. But all these other forms, the famous Churchill quote, what is it? Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Yeah.
But 17% said, better forms of government than democracy. And of course, my point is that by ignoring the Lockean consent of the governed with the referendum on changing the name, by ignoring it, the people said no. Government ignored it. The international fanboys and cheerleaders cheered them on and said, yeah, go for it. Ram it down their damn throats. So that's what Zaev did. And that was an exercise not in democracy, but in authoritarianism. So it doesn't really surprise me then that 17% of the people, almost a fifth, say there's better forms of democracy, better forms of government than democracy. So you reap what you sow.
Yeah, it's a police state here run by the embassy, and Still not sure what to call it, but
Yeah.
Ambasocracy or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly.
I suppose we should, before we get to our farmer's pick, I suppose we should talk just a tad. We're contractually obligated to talk about Bulgaria.
Oh, yeah.
I'm joking, listeners. If you think we're contractually obligated, we're not. We're not contractually. It's a joke. We don't have any contracts with anybody. But
I think it's an article of the Zaev-Borisov Treaty. That we have
what's that?
That I think it is in the Zaev-Borisov Treaty that every media outlet needs to discuss. But actually, this year, I mean, this week, there is actually news on Bulgaria. They vetoed us again.
Right.
You may have heard.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. So the General Affairs Council, I believe. Again, going back to what I said earlier, no wonder the EU is dysfunctional. You got so many bloody groups and meetings and talkathons, and all you do is talk. So, Bulgaria essentially vetoed the start of accession talks for the EU with with Macedonia. Bloody hell! I'm reading.
What? Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I'm reading a headline here.
The monsoon getting to you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm reading a headline. I gotta. And of course, Albania is tied to Macedonia. I see Eddie Rama, the prime minister, of Albania, was in Macedonia the other day as well. And I don't know what he said, but he said, this is a fault of Europe.
Again, sexual innuendo on Rama's part again.
Yes.
With the EU.
Yeah, but again, so Bulgaria continues to veto Macedonia. The EU continues to spin itself into a tizzy, saying, I think it was Michael Roth from Germany said, please. I mean, that's what he's
he was begging.
Please, it's
it was beautiful.
Maybe you should get down on his knees and squeal like a piggy. What do you expect? Greece got what it wanted.
Yeah, of course.
Bulgaria is doing the same bloody thing.
Why wouldn't they?
Exactly. Greece proved that it works. Bulgaria is merely following Greece's lead. So.
Yeah. And Zaev actually made a few concessions. He was actually in Sofia before this council,
right.
And two things. One thing he himself acknowledged that we're going to amend the constitution, so we now have like the Albanians, the Turks, the Roma, Bosniaks, and Vlachs and Serbs in the constitution.
What about the Americans?
So why not add?
There's Americans there.
We're getting there.
Okay.
I mean, they run the country anyway. So he now says, let's add the Bulgarians and probably, I guess, I don't know, the Montenegrins, the Croats. The Croats have us in their constitution, so because they want to water down their constitution with the Serbs.
Right.
So they added everybody else. So we are now probably going to add the Egyptians, a bunch of other nations as well, and the Bulgarians. And then the Bulgarians came out and said, okay, yeah, he said this, but there was more. He said that the language, so a formula that he might sign, and he's proposing or would sign, is that the Macedonian and the Bulgarian language are one and the same, except that they're internationally recognized as two separate languages. And then there is another one that's coming after during this meeting in Luxembourg of the EU guys, that on the nation, Zaev said, okay, actually Zaev said this after Luxembourg, I think. He said something like, okay, we're gonna, of course we're different nations, but we acknowledge there are people who claim that we are the same nation. So this is the formula they're going to, okay, this is the same thing, but it's internationally recognized as separate. Or it's separate things, but some people argue that it's the same. So this is what he wants to, and I'm sure that the Americans are advising him how to
separate but equal?
This. Yeah. It's going to be a big mess, but he's actually openly negotiating the language and the national identity under this formula, separate but equal.
Wow.
So that's what he's up to.
Yeah, well.
On top of the flag and the anthem and
everything
the coat
else,
of arms and the football federation.
Why doesn't he just propose that all the Macedonians leave and whoever's left can turn the lights off? Yeah. What a bloody fool.
We're working on it, yeah.
Right.
Getting there.
Well, okay. That's that. Bulgaria has their elections, second round of elections. The first round in early April resulted in no new government. They couldn't agree on it, so that's why they're having new elections on July 11th, I think, something like that. We'll see what happens. We'll probably have another one or two podcasts before then. But we've got a farmer's pick. It is Rumble. Yes, actually, it is one of our platforms that we post this podcast to. And the farmer's pick is actually from the Toronto Star, because Rumble is a Toronto-based Canadian website, which is an alternative to YouTube and other platforms that, if you say the wrong thing, will cancel you, as we have seen. I don't know if you've listened to Brett Weinstein's podcast, Dark Horse.
No, I didn't. But yeah, I saw.
Yeah, he's a member of the intellectual dark web, along with Jordan B. Peterson and others. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he himself and his wife were canceled from Evergreen State College in 2017 for standing up for free speech. And so he's gone and started. A lot of their income comes from podcasts and video vlogs, or whatever you call them, that they post on YouTube, etc. And of course, YouTube now is threatening to cancel him not because of controversial issues that we like to talk about and things like that, free speech and things like that. It's about I believe it's a potential drug that can fight COVID, and YouTube is going to cancel him. But he could certainly go to Rumble, and of course, Rumble, not only is it a platform that will post a lot of videos and content that YouTube might cancel, but it is also created by Chris Pavlovsky, who is, of course, Macedonian.
So technically still slightly inferior to YouTube, but politically and in the things that matter, actually letting you speak on the internet, far, far superior now than YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And this article, this is the Toronto Star, notes that Rumble, the user base has surged over 50 million unique page visits per month. They've had a lot of investor money come in from folks that are concerned about free speech and want to find an alternative to YouTube. So that is our farmer's pick. It is the platform Rumble, proudly created and hosted by a Macedonian.
Yeah, good to hear our boys helping fight the good fight.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that is a wrap for this week. Oh, I always forget. I did forget. I always say it at the beginning of the podcast. This is episode number 117 of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. We are recording this on Thursday, the 24th of June, so it'll drop tomorrow, the 25th. I do need to point out, last thing, that June 25 is the birthday of the late President Boris Trajkovsky. So he would have been 65 had he lived. And, Cvetin, he was a close friend of mine, but if he had lived and was turning 65, I don't think he would be a pensioner, just contented to potter about the house in his garden. I think he would have been very active, and I think he would have been a very strong defender of Macedonia's name and identity.
Yeah, he should. We would have needed his help to try clean up some of the mess his fellow Strumica neighbor Zaev is now doing.
Yes, indeed.
People said actually about Zaev and Pandav, how can we have such great people come from Strumica and then this thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a wrap.